Well, good evening, Bishop Mike. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being with us this evening as we move through stories of hope in Advent. We're really grateful for your presence with us.
Thank
Why
you. It's
don't
good
you
to be with
begin?
you.
Great. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about who you are and your faith background?
Yeah, well, first of all, hello everybody at Zion. Appreciate your ministry there in the Heights. And Mindy, you're doing a fantastic job in a very difficult time right now in this pandemic. So thank you. I grew up in a pastor's home. I'm a PK. Dad served a parish in Ohio and then was tapped by the Board of Missions, that's BOARD, to start a congregation in Michigan. And he planted that congregation and stayed for 33 years, if you can imagine. Mom was a real estate agent. And I remember coming down the stairs as a kid and her with her devotional book spread out over the coffee table and her Bible, and she had her prayer list. And boy, when she prayed for you until you told her to stop. She had prayer partners, just a person of deep faith. And then, of course, Dad, as a pastor, just had a huge impact on my life. And I think about the Sunday school teachers over the years, and then going to a Lutheran college and impacted the theology department there on my faith as I moved from a Sunday school faith to an adult faith. That was a huge part of my life experience. And then heading to seminary, that was a faith thing, and so on.
Nice. And now you are a bishop.
And now I'm a bishop. I've been a pastor for 33 years and have served as bishop for 13 of those.
Great. Well, Bishop Mike, the series that we are doing at Zion is inviting people to tell a little bit about their lives and to focus in on a story where things were sort of atypical for you, a time that you struggled, a time of discernment, a time of loss. I wonder if you might share one of those stories with us.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this since you first contacted me, Mindy, and thought of a couple of things. But what's kind of stuck out in my mind, I even talked it over with Susan, and she kind of grilled me. Well, what were some of those times for you, and what was helpful? And what I kept coming back to was the death of my mom and dad over the last couple of years, and I just talked about the impact they had on my life and my faith. But a few years ago, my parents, who lived in Austin, they lived in Leander, actually, Cedar Park area north of Austin, um, where they moved after they retired. Um, and they were both, I first noticed that Dad was having trouble working the television and the remote control. And I thought maybe it was a generational thing, but I thought to myself, he used to know how to do this. And so we started to see the signs. And I knew that Grandpa had died of Alzheimer's. And so we started to see, really them struggle more and more. And they were living at home still. And but we started seeing some odd things. And Mom would say Dad fell in the backyard because Alzheimer's also affects your autonomic functions. And motor skills and so forth. And gosh, it was just hard to see him decline, and he was forgetting things. And how Alzheimer's is, you can remember all this stuff from the past, but you can't remember what happened yesterday. And Dad was getting increasingly frustrated himself. Mom as well was also having troubles. Multiple kind of health issues, but also some dementia. I guess 70% of all dementias are Alzheimer's, so this is not an uncommon reality. And then at one point, I was actually there in Austin visiting, and Dad couldn't get out of bed. And he was always terrified of going to the hospital, hadn't ever had surgery, never been to the hospital, and was afraid of nursing homes. And they're in their 80s. But we called EMS, and EMS took him to the hospital, and he fought him tooth and nail. But when you can't get out of bed, you got a problem. So he went there, and it was decided that he could not go back to the house. Mom couldn't care for him. He couldn't be by himself. So we had to find a place for him. this just kind of threw us all into a tailspin. My sister who lives in Austin, my brother who lives in Baltimore, and we're, how do we do this? How do we pay for this? We had done no homework. They hadn't really prepared for it either. And so I found myself driving back and forth to Austin just all the time. And mom's having to live by herself at home. We finally found a place for dad. We weren't sure how we would pay for it exactly because, you spend $10,000 a month on a care facility. It has to be a significant care facility given his concerns, a memory care facility. And on dad's salary as a pastor, that was a real struggle. We weren't sure how that was going to all happen. And we struggled with that for a year. And I was emotionally and physically exhausted going back and forth. There was some tension in the family as we tried to negotiate how this would happen. And then dad died. And that was hard. It's the kind of thing is going to happen eventually. And how do you prepare for that exactly? And so then mom was by herself for a while, and my nephew came and lived with her because she really couldn't live by herself either, but we realized that wasn't going to last very long, so we had to find a place for her as well. Actually, I think she moved into the nursing home with him before he died, and that was difficult too. They weren't getting along. She claimed he was throwing stuff away that belonged to her, and it was really tough. And we had to get the house ready to sell because we knew we needed the proceeds from the house to pay for the nursing home. And how long are they going to live, and how do you balance the finances of all this? And dad was getting hostile, and at one point he had to go back in the hospital. He actually punched a nurse in the face. And when I had to pull him off of her. And then hours later, he didn't remember it had happened. And when I told him, he cried and said, I need to apologize to her. How do I get, it's so hard to somebody who's so high functioning to lose them. And Alzheimer's, you grieve piece by piece, right? You lose them in pieces. It doesn't all happen at once. This is the person who taught me to ride a bike, and my mom, the person who taught me to tie my shoes, and the people who taught me the faith. And it was tough. And so then dad died, and went through the whole funeral thing. And then mom went in the nursing home, and she started to more and more lose it. And I was visiting pretty regularly, driving over, play the piano in the nursing home, and everybody come out of their rooms and come and listen. And my mom would sing. My mom loved to sing, and she'd hold forth at the piano singing her songs. And there were some good moments in the midst of that, but also hard as she lost more and more and ceased to recognize people and remember things. I was the firstborn, so she remembered me the most and to the last. And I remember we were at the ELCA youth gathering in Houston. It was the last day, Sunday morning, and I got a call from my brother early in the morning. She had passed away in the night. And that was just tough. I would say that is probably one of the roughest spots I've had in the last few years. And she died in 2018. So it's been about 2 years from now.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Bishop Mike. We know that certainly watching the slow decline of parents and with such a vicious disease, how difficult that can be. And we're grateful that you share that with us, knowing that lives in our congregation as well. So I wonder, as you look back over those years, as you sift through those memories, what did hope look like for you?
Yeah, thanks. A number of things. First of all, having friends to process this with, some friends who had been through this with their own parents, either parents died or parents with Alzheimer's, to be able to talk about it just being able to share with it. I think they say with PTSD, and this is not that, but with PTSD, for example, they say the only thing that helps people is to process, what you're going through. That was a big part of it. Um, their hope in the resurrection uh, brought me comfort in my prayer life, and my prayer life these days is walking. I've had different stages. We all have these different stages in our prayer lives, and right now it's getting outside and walking, and sometimes talking out loud to God. I'm sure the neighbors think I'm a little bit off my rocker, but there it is. And in those times, being able to bring back memories of mom and dad. Um, and rehearse those stories in my mind. I would listen to music that we listened to on vacations when I was a kid, and let the tears just stream down your face. That was a part of the grieving process. Um, kind of reminding myself that this is the natural order of things. I remember thinking about this when I was a kid. What happens when mom and dad aren't around anymore? I mean, and here I am in my late 50s, and finally facing that reality. It's brought comfort to think about that. I have mom's Bible. I should have brought it with me. It's in the other room here. It's just amazing. There's marks on every page, and I would actually do my devotions before I go for my walk. I'd read some scripture passages from her Bible. Dad's home communion kit from the 60s, inscribed, and he loved to garden and cook. So I had some other kind of almost sacramental utensils that we made, kind of a home altar. Susan's parents had passed away too, so we made a frame of her parents and my parents, and some of their stuff around. I remember Pastor Greg Gaskamp, their pastor, was so helpful. I could just call him and process things when we were struggling, and he was just so kind and thoughtful. I have a spiritual director, Chuck Kinsvater, and I would process some of this stuff with them too. um, Mom scripture passages, she had us memorizing stuff when we were kids. So some of these passages that just kind of bubbled up, of course, Psalm 23, probably one of the first Bible passages we ever memorized as kids. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Those are some of the things that brought me comfort and hope in the midst of that really difficult time.
Thank you, Bishop Mike. Thank you again for sharing your story. I know it's still a raw story, and so we're grateful that you would invite us into that space and to talk a little bit about grief and hope. I know that resonates with so many of us, and so we're very grateful for your time.
Thank you.